Welcome to my office. We can't charge around in here. Not enough space. With my speed, I'd smack into the wall. Check out that photo on your right. Me in my Rough Rider uniform. We left Cuba, me and the Rough Riders, shortly after the Battle of Santiago Bay. We got to march in a parade in New York City. We did that on horseback, leaving the impression that we fought in Cuba with our horses. The Black 10th Cavalry did not get to march in that parade. History always puts a slant on things. You have to do some research. Now, old Lieutenant Parker, he should have been at the head of that parade with his Gatling guns. Parker played a big role in the success of my charge up the hills. Those guns raked the crest at the critical moment. We owe a toast to Lieutenant Parker. Check out the picture of me and the boys on the top of San Juan Hill. It was a splendid little war. It only lasted from April to August 1898, and we sure did gain some territory. It was the birth of America as a superpower. War casualties were pretty small, only 350 killed in action. But you know, we lost about 5,462 during the conflict. Most of the deaths were caused by tropical disease, poor medical planning, and some pretty sorry logistics. You know, most of the troops had wool uniforms in that oppressive Cuban heat. They had an investigation after the war to try to solve those problems. It was called the Dodge Commission. The commission was appointed by President William McKinley in 1898. The commission's task was to investigate charges of neglect that led to the appalling conditions in U.S. military camps during the Spanish-American War. The commission was headed by Major General Grenville Dodge, and its main conclusions were that lack of preparedness and bureaucratic inefficiency were to blame for these supply shortages and the failure to contain the outbreak of disease. The decision to keep the Philippines as a territory did not sit well with Aguinaldo, so we ended up fighting in the Philippines. It was called the Philippine Insurrection, and it lasted from 1899 to 1905. You know, we could not have given the Philippines independence in 1899. The islands were just too valuable. If we'd sailed away, one of the other great powers would have gobbled up the place. Great Britain, Japan, Austria, Germany, one of those would have grabbed the islands for sure. I'm not sure that Aguinaldo understood the role the Philippines played in the concept of sea power, geography, and coaling stations. I had political ambitions after the war. After all, that crowded hour at Kettle and San Juan Hills was a platform to the presidency. I became governor of New York after the war. In 1900, I could have run for president. Some folks did not want me to run for office against McKinley, so I ended up on the ticket with McKinley as the vice presidential candidate. The VP in most cases never amounts to much, and I think some folks figured I'd just fade off into oblivion. Unfortunately, McKinley is one of the 4 U.S. presidents that have been assassinated in office. He was shot on 6 September 1901 and died on 14 September. That made me the President of the United States. Some folks said that I became president by accident. Well, when I won the election in 1904, by a landslide, I was no longer a political accident. My policies as president were simple. Speak softly, but carry a big stick. I created the Great White Fleet. White to speak softly, but those battleships carried the big stick. In 1903, I caused the Panama Canal construction to begin. Had to use a little gunboat diplomacy with Colombia and Panama. Panama had revolted against Colombia. I sent the fleet out, cut a simple deal. We supported the independence of Panama, but we got the Canal Zone as a U.S. territory. Had to have the canal. Sea power. Needed to be able to quickly shift the fleet from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The Panama Canal became a centerpiece for U.S. naval strategy up through the 1980s. The locks in the canal were a factor in U.S. ship design. Warships had to be able to fit into those locks. The largest battleships we built in World War II, the Missouri, Iowa, New Jersey, and Wisconsin, all fit into those canal locks. Modern-day aircraft carriers overwhelm the locks, so the canal has lost most of its military value. I created a corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. In the corollary, I proclaimed that the United States, because it was a civilized nation, had the right to stop chronic wrongdoing throughout the Western Hemisphere. This resulted in several interventions in South America and Caribbean affairs. We almost went to war with Germany over Venezuela, but in the long run, my gunboat diplomacy kept the peace. I received some criticism as the president, but let me leave you with this note about the presidency. The president is merely the most important among a large number of public servants. He should be supported or opposed exactly to the degree which is warranted by his good conduct or bad conduct, his efficiency or inefficiency in rendering loyal, able, and disinterested service to the nation as a whole. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary that there should be full liberty to tell the truth about his acts, and this means that it is exactly necessary to blame him when he does wrong as to praise him when he does right. Any other attitude in an American citizen is both base and servile. To announce that there must be no criticism of the president, or that we are to stand by the president, right or wrong, is not only unpatriotic and servile, but is morally treasonable to the American public. Nothing but the truth should be spoken about him or anyone else. But it is even more important to tell the truth, pleasant or unpleasant, about him than about anyone else. Sounds like I have some other visitors. Let me charge over to my next engagement. You have a great evening.